The hidden lineage of hybrid chosen ones, dark and light united. You've likely spent your whole life feeling drawn toward the light, yet strangely at home in the shadows. You carry a deep love for humanity, yet you find yourself growing in isolation. You're called to heal, but your presence often shatters illusions. You want peace, yet your truth causes storms. This inner contradiction has made you doubt yourself for years. But what if I told you that this inner war isn't a flaw, it's a key? What if the very reason you've never fully fit in with the light chosen or the dark chosen is because you weren't meant to choose between them? What if your soul belongs to a hidden lineage, long erased from spiritual memory? A secret group who were never meant to be one or the other, but both. The hybrid chosen ones. They are the rarest, the most unstable, the most powerful, and the most feared, because they carry the codes of both creation and destruction, healing and awakening, compassion and command. They don't just walk in the light or the dark, they bridge them, and that makes them dangerous. Not to people, but to systems, to illusions, to false prophets. Hybrid chosen ones are not born to blend in. They are born to disrupt everything that no longer serves truth.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
But this path is not glamorous. In fact, it is brutal. Because while light chosen ons are guided by love and dark chosen ons are forged by fire, the hybrid walks a razor's edge between them. And no one trains them. No one warns them. No one tells them that their very energy will confuse others. That one day they will be seen as healers, and the next as threats. That their vibration can both comfort and confront at the same time, and this makes the world unsure of what to do with them. Have you felt this confusion around you? Have people misread your silence as coldness, your strength as cruelty, your love as manipulation? That's not your fault. It's because they're trying to categorize a soul that was never meant to be boxed in. The hybrid chosen ones are often born into extreme duality families where light and shadow constantly collide, or cultures that teach suppression while preaching enlightenment. This is not random. Your soul chose to be trained this way, because a hybrid doesn't learn through books or peaceful paths. They learn through contradiction, through betrayal, through complexity. It is this path that sharpens their discernment like a blade. They must learn to recognize truth not by how it looks, but by how it feels. Their guidance doesn't come from external mentors, it comes from the war inside them. At some point, the hybrid chosen one realizes they are not broken. They are built for what's coming. Because in this timeline, the world doesn't need more gurus of light or warriors of darkness. It needs bridges. People who can walk into any room, no matter the frequency, and bring truth. People who can navigate chaos without becoming it, and hold light without being blinded by it. But to do that, they must first stop rejecting either side of themselves. This is the real work, not to perfect one polarity, but to integrate both. You must stop choosing. Stop apologizing for your fire. Stop diluting your compassion. Stop acting like your intensity is something to hide. You were born to merge what others were taught to keep apart. And that merging, when fully embodied, becomes a vibration so rare that it can collapse timelines, heal bloodlines, and awaken souls simply through presence. But here's the trap most hybrids fall into: the pressure to define themselves. The spiritual world loves categories. It wants to know, are you light or are you dark? Are you healer or warrior? Are you peaceful or powerful? And the moment you try to answer, you start shrinking. You start performing. You begin living half-truths. And every time you do, your soul contracts. Why? Because the hybrid can feel when they're lying. Not with words, but with frequency. Your body reacts. Your spirit aches. That tension in your chest. That fatigue in your soul. It's not anxiety. It's spiritual resistance, your inner being refusing to betray itself one more time. So the path forward is radical. You stop playing by any old spiritual rules. You become the rule. You stop proving your light. You stop justifying your shadow. You let both live in you without shame. And in that permission, something divine happens. You stabilize. The inner war ends. Not because one side wins, but because both sides are finally allowed to exist. Now the question is, what does that look like in real life? It means your peace will look like fire to some. It means your boundaries will look like rejection. Your clarity will look like arrogance. But none of it is personal. It's vibrational. People who have not integrated their own polarities will always misunderstand a hybrid until they're ready to awaken themselves. Then they will seek you out, not because you are loud, but because your presence reminds them of something ancient, something they buried. You are that reminder. But you must remember yourself first. You must reclaim your lineage and understand you are not starting something. You are continuing something. The hybrid lineage is older than this world. You carry codes that were hidden during every spiritual war, every cultural collapse, every religious conquest. You survived in silence through the mystics, the rebels, the forgotten teachers. But now the silence is ending. This is the moment you stop hiding. And I ask you now, what would it feel like to stop dividing yourself? To stop negotiating your nature? To walk through this world as a living bridge between two realms that others were too afraid to cross? The forgotten prophecy, why hybrid chosen ons hold the blueprint for humanity's next spiritual evolution. There's a reason you've always felt like you were living in between worlds. Like you were meant to speak truths that don't fully belong in one spiritual camp or the other. There is something ancient coded in your bones, something deeper than language or belief, something even older than history itself. It is a frequency that vibrates between the realms of destruction and rebirth, silence and revelation, pain and transcendence. And if you've ever wondered why your life has been marked by extremes, why you've been taken through the depths of despair and yet touched moments of the divine, it's because you carry within you a prophecy long forgotten. One that was never meant to be written in books or spoken from stages, but carried inside the hybrid chosen ones, the living blueprint. You are not just a spiritual anomaly, you are a necessary mutation in a dying age. While the world has worshipped polarities, light versus dark, good versus evil, masculine versus feminine, you were born to embody the union. You are the living tension between opposites, the sacred contradiction made flesh. And because of that, your path is not just personal, it is evolutionary. The way you walk, love, fall, rise, speak, and even grieve, all of it sends signals into the energetic fabric of this world, creating new patterns, new templates, new roads that others will follow once their time comes. But let's get one thing straight. This prophecy was never glamorous. It was never about status, titles, or universal acceptance. In fact, most hybrids will live in total obscurity for years, sometimes lifetimes, because the energy they carry is too disruptive for systems built on separation. You were not born to serve systems. You were born to dissolve them. And the weight of this often makes you question yourself. You look around and wonder why the world doesn't reflect your inner knowing, why others don't feel what you feel, why your truths often fall on deaf ears. But that isolation is the womb of your prophecy. Because when something is this sacred, it cannot be rushed. It must be forged slowly, deliberately. You've been initiated by pain not to punish you, but to refine your discernment. You've been forced to release every illusion not because you're cursed, but because what you're meant to carry can't be contaminated by ego, fantasy, or external validation. Your silence wasn't wasted time, it was sacred incubation. Your loneliness wasn't abandonment, it was calibration. And now, something is shifting. The vibration of this planet is changing. The old grids are cracking. The collective spell of polarity is dissolving. People are waking up in droves, no longer satisfied with simplistic answers or black and white truths. They're looking for integration. They're seeking something or someone who can hold both fire and stillness, chaos and clarity, compassion and command. That's when they will find you. But only if you've stopped hiding. This is the prophecy that when the world forgets how to be whole, the hybrids will rise to remember for it. Not by preaching unity, but by being it. You are the temple where opposites meet. You are the unspoken answer to the war between extremes. And your energy, your actual vibration, is the medicine for a world addicted to division. But here's the most dangerous thing of all. You cannot teach this. You can only live it. And in living it, others begin to remember. Not through your words, but through your presence, your alignment, your unapologetic embodiment of both shadow and light. This is why you must do the inner work, because your presence is not neutral, it is a transmitter. If you are still at war with yourself, that frequency will ripple outward and confuse those who look to you. But when you come into internal union, when you stop choosing sides and start flowing between them, you become an energetic map, a code, a permission slip. You are not just here to break chains. You are here to redefine freedom itself. You are not here to destroy the old world with fire. You are here to carry the seeds of the new one in your body. And those seeds grow not in doctrine, but in how you live, how you speak, how you move through space. That is why the prophecy has always been hidden, because it is not written in ink, but in frequency. So I ask you right now, in the deepest space of your heart, what part of you is still waiting for proof, for permission, for validation, when you were born to be the proof itself? The sacred struggle of hybrids, how your pain, silence, and isolation were the keys all along. If you've ever found yourself collapsing into tears and not knowing why, if you've ever walked away from a room because you could feel the lies vibrating in the air, if you've ever looked at the world and wondered if you were the only one feeling it all so deeply, then you've already met the sacred struggle of the hybrid chosen one. You weren't broken. You were being refined. Every ache you felt wasn't random, it was initiation. Every time you were silenced, abandoned, misread, excluded, it was not because you were less. It was because your frequency was too much for a world that had forgotten how to hold both fire and water at once. And this is what makes the hybrid path so brutal. You're not just embodying a dual force, you're merging them. The light in you feels deeply, forgives, surrenders, uplifts. The dark in you sees through facades, cuts through illusions, asserts, protects. But what happens when you carry both and live in a world that tells you to pick one? You fracture, you create masks. You develop a safe version of yourself for the public and a secret self for the night. And over time, you start to question if you're even real anymore. That pain is sacred. It's not a mistake. Because here's the truth most can't accept. Hybrids are meant to experience the ache of not belonging. They are meant to sit in silence for years, sometimes decades, wondering if anyone else out there feels what they feel. Because that solitude becomes their mirror. It becomes their teacher. It shows them what's real without the distortion of performance or people-pleasing. You cannot become the bridge between realms if you've only ever stood on one side. So the pain was your crossing. The silence was your training. The isolation was your altar. There's a reason why the hybrid chosen ones often carry the most intense childhoods. Homes where one parent was light, the other was dark. Upbringings filled with contrast, moments of deep love laced with deep confusion. They were born into polarity not to suffer, but to understand it intimately, to master its language from the inside out. Because later, when they begin their work in the world, they will have to sit with both the wounded and the awakened, the destroyer and the healer, the arrogant and the innocent, and hold space for all of them. but you can't hold space for what you've never faced. That's why your own demons had to rise first. That's why your own heart had to break open again and again. It's why your ego had to die in silence with no one clapping for your courage. Because hybrid chosen ones don't awaken through books or lectures. They awaken through loss, through internal earthquakes, through being forgotten by the world just long enough to remember themselves. And once they reclaim all their pieces, even the ones that scare others, they become magnetic, not in a superficial way, but in a cellular way. People don't know why they're drawn to you, why they want to confess their truths to you, why they fear and respect you in the same breath. It's because they feel the spectrum inside you. And that spectrum is what the world is starving for. A full human, a real being, someone who stopped pretending. But don't mistake your struggle as over. It won't be. Because as long as you carry both poles inside you, you will always walk that edge. You'll always be asked to hold tension where others collapse. You'll always be pulled into paradoxes, called to speak up and remain silent, to hold space and draw boundaries, to stand in truth and yet see everyone's perspective at once. And if you're not careful, you'll start to think that means something's wrong with you. But here's the truth. That tension you hold is the healing of this world. Most people are torn by it. You were built to hold it. That's your gift. That's your edge. And yes, it's exhausting. That's why you must protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Your energy is an ancient bridge. Every time you show up fully, even in silence, you're transmitting codes into the collective. Every time you speak truth that includes both pain and possibility, you're reweaving the spiritual DNA of those listening. That is not metaphor. That is vibration. So I ask you this: what if everything that hurt you, silenced you, and isolated you was not trying to destroy you, but to shape you into the only vessel capable of holding this rare and sacred power? Because if you've made it this far, the struggle wasn't your enemy. It was your crowning. The final return, why hybrid chosen ons were always destined to lead the age of integration. Now that you've walked through the pain, sat in the silence, and survived the isolation, what comes next is not what most expect. There's no loud announcement, no blinding light, no choir of spirits descending to declare that you've arrived. The real return of the hybrid chosen one is quiet but unstoppable. It doesn't happen in a single moment. It unfolds with each step you take in full ownership of your wholeness. It's not a destination. It's a frequency. And the moment you stop apologizing for carrying both light and dark within you, the moment you stop diluting your depth to make others feel safe, that's when your true leadership begins, not the kind the world recognizes with titles, but the kind that rearranges reality simply by being. This world isn't waiting for more heroes or more saviors. It's waiting for integration. And that's what you are. You are the walking convergence of polarities, the embodiment of contradiction made sacred. You were never meant to take sides. You were meant to dissolve the illusion of separation itself. And this is why you've always felt different, why you couldn't fully join the light communities, even though your heart ached for peace, why you couldn't fully surrender to the dark path, even though your soul burned for truth, because you were born for something beyond both. You are the future in human form. The next age of consciousness will not be defined by spiritual hierarchy or ancient binaries. It will be defined by wholeness, by authenticity, by the return of the hybrid ones, the ones who integrate their rage and still radiate compassion, who see through illusions but still choose to love, who remember their power without ever needing to dominate. You are not here to conquer, you are here to unify, and that unification begins with you. But to lead this next era, you must become something very few have ever had the courage to become: fully, fearlessly yourself. Not a version of yourself shaped by safety, not a performance shaped by what others expect, but the real thing. The soul that has walked through dimensions in a single lifetime. The voice that carries lightning and lullabies in the same breath. The presence that makes people feel like they're both dying and being born when they're around you. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need to explain your duality. You don't need to soften your power or harden your tenderness. You only need to stand in your alignment. The right people will feel it. The world will feel it. Because your vibration is the prophecy. You are not just in the shift. You are the shift. And as you move forward, remember this: your greatest service is not in convincing others to change. It's in being so fully integrated that your very presence gives them permission to meet themselves. You don't have to say much. You don't have to convert anyone. Just be who you truly are and watch what awakens around you. Because you were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be felt. And now that you've returned, whole and embodied, the world can finally begin to remember what it means to be free. Welcome home. N.